My name is Chloe, and at 28 years old, I built a $15 million tech company from my garage without ever stepping foot in a college classroom. For 3 years, I secretly paid my family's bills while they mocked my career choices at every family gathering. Last Christmas, when my father, Patrick, called me a worthless dropout and told me I would never amount to anything, he had no idea I was already worth more than his entire neighborhood combined. What happened 2 weeks later when my success went viral changed everything. The look of shock on his face was worth every sleepless night I had endured building my empire. Before I tell you how I went from family disappointment to tech millionaire, drop a comment letting me know which country you are watching from. Hit that like button if you have ever been underestimated by the people who should support you most, and subscribe if you believe success is the ultimate revenge. I grew up in a cramped three-bedroom house in Portland, Oregon, where traditional career paths were not just expected but demanded. My father, Patrick, worked as a middle manager at an insurance company for 22 years, bringing home the same modest paycheck every month while constantly complaining about people who thought they were too good for honest work. My mother, Angela, taught third grade at the local elementary school and spent her evenings grading papers while reinforcing my father's belief that education was the only legitimate path to respectability. From the moment I could walk, I was different from my younger brother Dylan, who excelled at following rules and meeting expectations. While Dylan spent his afternoons playing video games or watching television, I was taking apart every electronic device I could find, trying to understand how circuits worked and why some gadgets failed while others lasted for years. By age 12, I was fixing neighbors' computers for $20 each, using YouTube tutorials and online forums to teach myself programming languages that most high school students had never heard of. My parents viewed these activities with a mixture of confusion and mild annoyance. Chloe needs to focus on her homework instead of playing with these computer games, my father would announce during dinner, as if writing code was equivalent to mindless entertainment. These hobbies will not pay for college or put food on the table when she grows up. You cannot build a career on fixing broken laptops. High school became a battleground between my entrepreneurial instincts and their academic expectations. I maintained a solid B average while spending every free moment learning advanced programming concepts, building simple websites for local businesses, and developing mobile apps that generated small amounts of revenue through advertising. By junior year, I had earned nearly $5,000 from various digital projects, money I kept hidden in a separate bank account to avoid triggering another lecture about misplaced priorities. When college application deadlines approached, I felt trapped between two impossible choices. Pursuing computer science at a traditional university meant 4 years of learning outdated concepts from professors who had never built actual products, while abandoning higher education entirely would trigger a family crisis that seemed too overwhelming to contemplate. I applied to several state schools to buy time, hoping to find a middle ground that would satisfy both my ambitions and their expectations. The compromise lasted exactly 1 semester. Portland State University's computer science program moved at a glacial pace, covering basic programming concepts I had mastered years earlier, while requiring dozens of general education courses that felt completely irrelevant to my career goals. The professors seemed more interested in theoretical discussions than practical applications, and most of my classmates treated coding assignments as tedious obstacles rather than exciting puzzles to solve. During winter break of my freshman year, I made a decision that would define the rest of my life. I would leave college and pursue my business ideas full time, using the money I had saved from high school projects to support myself while building something meaningful. The conversation with my parents was even worse than I had anticipated. "You are throwing your life away for some computer fantasy," my father shouted, his face red with anger and disappointment. "No daughter of mine will be a college dropout working minimum wage jobs for the rest of her life because she thinks she is smarter than everyone else. People like us do not take risks like this. We get degrees, find stable jobs, and build respectable lives." My mother's response was quieter, but equally devastating. "I'm so disappointed in you, Chloe. We sacrificed so much to give you opportunities we never had, and you are just throwing them away. What will I tell people when they ask about your education? How will you ever find a good husband or provide for a family without a degree?" Despite their protests and threats to cut off all financial support, I withdrew from college at age 19 with $3,000 in savings and a determination to prove them wrong. Those first months were brutal beyond anything I had experienced. I rented a tiny studio apartment in the cheapest part of town where sirens wailed through the night, and my neighbors included drug dealers and people who seemed to have given up on life entirely. My daily routine consisted of eating ramen noodles for breakfast, spending 12 hours coding and building my first real business, then falling asleep on a mattress on the floor while listening to police helicopters circle overhead. I survived on less than $30 per week for food, buying expired bread and dented cans from discount grocery stores while teaching myself advanced web development and mobile app creation. My first 3 business attempts failed spectacularly. A social media management service collapsed when I underpriced my work and burned out trying to serve 15 clients simultaneously. An e-commerce platform for handmade crafts never gained enough users to generate meaningful revenue. A mobile game I spent 6 months developing was immediately copied by larger companies with bigger marketing budgets. Each failure taught me valuable lessons that no college course could have provided. I learned about customer acquisition costs through painful experience of spending my last $200 on Facebook ads that generated 0 sales. I discovered the importance of market research by building products that solve problems nobody actually had. Most importantly, I developed the resilience to bounce back from devastating setbacks without losing confidence in my ultimate vision. The turning point came during my second year as a dropout when I met Isabella, a successful entrepreneur in her 40s who ran a digital marketing agency downtown. She attended a local tech meetup where I was presenting a prototype for a project management tool designed specifically for small creative businesses. While other attendees offered polite but dismissive feedback, Isabella approached me afterward with genuine interest and practical questions about my business model. "You have something special here," she told me over coffee the following week. "The technical execution is solid, but more importantly, you understand your target market in a way that most developers do not. That combination of skills is rare, especially in someone your age." Isabella became the mentor I desperately needed, teaching me advanced business strategy and introducing me to other entrepreneurs who could provide guidance and potential partnerships. With her help, I refined my project management platform and launched TaskForge in the spring of my 21st year. Unlike my previous attempts, this product solved a real problem for a clearly defined market. Small creative agencies and freelance teams needed project management tools that were powerful enough to handle complex workflows, but simple enough to learn quickly without extensive training. The early days of TaskForge required sacrifices that tested every limit of my endurance and creativity. I converted my studio apartment into a makeshift office, setting up multiple monitors on a folding table while using my bed as a makeshift conference room for video calls with potential customers. I worked 18-hour days, writing code in the morning, handling customer support in the afternoon, and developing marketing strategies late into the night. My breakthrough moment came 8 months after launch, when a popular design blog featured TaskForge in their annual roundup of essential tools for creative professionals. The article generated more than 1,000 new signups in a single week, overwhelming my basic server infrastructure and forcing me to learn about scalability under pressure. I spent 72 hours straight upgrading our systems and personally responding to every customer email to maintain goodwill during the transition. That feature article marked the beginning of explosive growth that would continue for the next 3 years. TaskForge's user base expanded from hundreds to thousands, then tens of thousands, as word of mouth spread through creative communities worldwide. Revenue grew from a few $100s per month to multiple thousands, then tens of thousands, as we added premium features and enterprise pricing tiers. Throughout this period of rapid growth, I maintained minimal contact with my family. They knew I had some kind of computer business that was doing okay, but I deliberately downplayed the scale of our success to avoid triggering another round of lectures about the importance of traditional career paths. Part of me hoped they would eventually ask detailed questions about my work, showing genuine interest in what I had built, but those conversations never materialized. Despite their continued disapproval of my choices, I began secretly helping my family with their financial struggles. When my mother, Angela's car, needed major repairs that would have cost 2 months of her teaching salary, I anonymously paid the mechanic directly, telling him a satisfied customer had covered the bill as a random act of kindness. When my brother Dylan struggled to afford textbooks for his engineering program, I sent him a check disguised as a scholarship from a fictional foundation. These acts of hidden generosity created a strange dynamic where I was simultaneously supporting the family that viewed me as a failure while hiding the very success that enabled my assistance. The emotional toll of this contradiction grew heavier as TaskForge continued to thrive, and my personal wealth increased dramatically. By my 25th birthday, TaskForge had grown into a company with 42 employees, offices in 3 cities, and annual revenue approaching $10 million. We had been featured in major technology publications and recognized as one of the fastest-growing software companies in the Pacific Northwest. Despite this success, my family continued to treat me like the college dropout who had made a series of poor life choices. The disconnect between my public achievements and private family relationships created an internal conflict that therapy sessions with Dr. Martinez helped me understand but not resolve. You are seeking validation from people who are fundamentally incapable of recognizing your type of success, she explained during one particularly difficult session. Their identity is built around traditional markers of achievement, and your unconventional path threatens their entire worldview. Family gatherings became increasingly painful exercises in maintaining my facade. At Dylan's college graduation party, relatives asked about his engineering degree while completely ignoring my presence. When my cousin asked what I was doing for work, my father Patrick interrupted before I could answer. Chloe has her little computer thing. She fixes websites or something like that. The dismissive tone made it clear that further discussion was unwelcome. During these gatherings, I would sit quietly while family members celebrated traditional achievements. Dylan's internship at a respectable engineering firm, my cousin's acceptance to medical school, another relative's promotion at a bank. Their accomplishments were real and deserved recognition, but the complete dismissal of my entrepreneurial success created a growing resentment that I struggled to hide. Meanwhile, TaskForge continued breaking new ground. We launched an artificial intelligence feature that automatically optimized project timelines based on team performance data. Major corporations began adopting our enterprise platform, including 2 Fortune 500 companies that paid 6-figure annual licenses. Tech blogs started calling us the next big thing in productivity software, comparing our growth trajectory to companies that had sold for hundreds of millions of dollars. The financial assistance I provided my family also escalated. When Angela needed surgery for a herniated disc, I anonymously covered the $25,000 medical bill that insurance refused to pay. Patrick's car transmission failed, and I arranged for a local dealer to offer him an impossibly good trade-in deal that I secretly subsidized. Dylan's student loans were mysteriously forgiven through what appeared to be a clerical error at the bank, though I had actually purchased his debt through a third-party company.
Each act of hidden generosity reinforced the painful irony of my situation. I was supporting a family that viewed me as their least successful member while building a company that generated more revenue in a month than Patrick earned in an entire year.
As TaskForge approached its fifth anniversary, our valuation reached $15 million after a comprehensive audit by a prestigious accounting firm. Venture capital firms began reaching out with acquisition offers that would have made me wealthy beyond my wildest teenage dreams. I turned down every offer, determined to maintain control of the company I had built from nothing, while my family remained completely unaware of what I had accomplished. The weight of maintaining this secret grew heavier with each family interaction. At Patrick's 59th birthday dinner, I sat quietly while relatives discussed their children's conventional career milestones. Dylan had been promoted to senior engineer at his firm, earning genuine pride and celebration from everyone present. When my aunt asked about my work, Angela quickly changed the subject with obvious embarrassment, as if my career was too shameful to discuss in polite company. The financial strain on my family continued despite their modest middle-class lifestyle. Patrick's insurance company had frozen salaries for 3 consecutive years, while healthcare costs increased annually. Angela's teaching position offered minimal raises that barely kept pace with inflation. Dylan was saving for a house down payment, but struggled with Portland's rapidly rising real estate prices. I responded to each crisis with anonymous assistance that grew increasingly elaborate. When Patrick complained about needing roof repairs that would cost $8,000, I hired a contractor to offer him a special discount for being a longtime neighborhood resident. The contractor, who I paid the full amount plus a substantial bonus for his discretion, presented Patrick with a bill for only $1,200. Angela's classroom needed new computers for her students, but the school district claimed budget constraints prevented the purchase. I arranged for a technology company to donate refurbished equipment through what appeared to be a corporate community service program. Angela spent weeks praising the generosity of strangers, while never suspecting her dropout daughter had made the donation possible. Dylan's apartment lease expired just as rental prices spiked throughout the city. I purchased a small house in his preferred neighborhood through a shell company, then offered it to him at below market rent through a property management firm. He moved in believing he had found an incredible deal through his own apartment hunting skills. Each act of hidden generosity reinforced my growing resentment toward a family that accepted my financial help while continuing to view me as their least accomplished member. The therapy sessions with Dr. Martinez became more frequent as I struggled with the emotional complexity of supporting people who showed me no respect or genuine interest. "You are enabling a dynamic that hurts everyone involved," Dr. Martinez observed during one particularly difficult session. "Your family cannot appreciate your success because they do not know about it, and you cannot feel valued because you are hiding your achievements. This pattern will continue until someone breaks the cycle." Her words resonated deeply, but changing the dynamic felt impossible without risking complete family rejection. As Patrick's 60th birthday approached, I made a decision that would either repair our fractured relationship or destroy it completely. It was time to be honest about my success and see if the family I had been secretly supporting could finally recognize what I had accomplished. The weight of maintaining this facade had become unbearable, affecting my mental health and my ability to form authentic relationships outside the family. I spent weeks planning the perfect moment to reveal the truth about TaskForge. My company had just been featured on the cover of Pacific Business Journal as one of the region's most innovative startups, with a detailed article about our revolutionary approach to project management software. The timing felt right to finally share my achievements with the people whose approval I'd been seeking for nearly a decade. The gift I planned for Patrick was substantial but thoughtful. I had researched his financial situation extensively through public records and casual family conversations.
His retirement savings were woefully inadequate, a fact that caused him obvious stress as his 60th birthday approached. I arranged to fund a comprehensive retirement account that would provide comfortable monthly income for both him and Angela for the rest of their lives. The documentation was prepared by my financial advisor with explicit instructions to present the gift in a way that emphasized the practical benefits rather than the monetary value. I wanted Patrick to understand that this was not charity or showing off, but a son's genuine desire to ensure his parents could enjoy their golden years without financial worry. I also prepared a simple presentation about TaskForge that would help my family understand what I had built without overwhelming them with technical details. The folder included recent press coverage, customer testimonials, and basic financial information that demonstrated the company's stability and growth trajectory. Nothing boastful or aggressive, just facts that would help them see my unconventional path had led to legitimate success. The night before the birthday dinner, I rehearsed potential conversations with Dr. Martinez during an emergency therapy session. We role-played different scenarios from enthusiastic acceptance to complete rejection, helping me prepare emotionally for various outcomes. You cannot control their reaction, she reminded me, but you can control how you respond to whatever happens. I practiced explaining complex business concepts in simple terms that would resonate with Patrick's insurance background and Angela's teaching experience. I prepared analogies that would help them understand how software companies create value and why TaskForge had attracted such positive attention from industry experts and major corporations. The irony was not lost on me that I was preparing to seek approval from people whose combined annual income was less than what TaskForge generated in a typical month. Yet their opinions still mattered more than recognition from tech industry leaders or venture capitalists who understood my achievements immediately. Dylan had recently gotten engaged to his college girlfriend Rachel, and the family was buzzing with excitement about wedding planning and their future together. I genuinely felt happy for my brother, but his engagement also highlighted the different ways our parents measured success. His conventional relationship and stable engineering career represented everything they valued, while my entrepreneurial journey remained invisible to them. That morning, I drove to my childhood home with a mixture of anticipation and dread. The house looked exactly as it had throughout my youth, with the same faded blue shutters and overgrown hedge that Patrick never quite found time to trim properly. Angela's flower garden showed signs of neglect, probably due to the back problems that had required surgery I had secretly funded. As I parked in the driveway, I noticed Dylan's new Toyota Camry, purchased with savings he had accumulated more quickly than expected due to his mysteriously affordable rent. Rachel's Honda Civic sat behind it. Both vehicles represented the modest but respectable lifestyle my family aspired to maintain. I took a deep breath and gathered my materials. Tonight would finally answer the question that had haunted me since dropping out of college. Could the family that had raised me learn to respect the path I had chosen? Or would their traditional values always create an insurmountable barrier between us? The gift folder felt heavy in my hands as I walked toward the front door that had been closed to me emotionally for so many years. The evening of Patrick's 60th birthday began with the familiar rhythm of family gatherings I had known since childhood. Angela greeted me at the door with her usual restrained affection, commenting on my appearance rather than asking about my life. Dylan and Rachel arrived shortly after, both glowing with the confidence that comes from meeting every societal expectation perfectly. The house smelled of Angela's famous pot roast, and the dining room table was set with the good china reserved for special occasions. Family photos lined the walls, documenting decades of birthdays, graduations, and holidays. I noticed that recent pictures featured Dylan prominently, while I appeared less frequently, a visual representation of my diminishing role in the family narrative. Throughout the pre-dinner conversation, my career received not a single inquiry. Dylan dominated the discussion with stories about his recent promotion and wedding planning details. Rachel contributed enthusiastic comments about venue options and guest lists. When my uncle briefly mentioned seeing an article about tech company growth in Portland, Angela quickly steered the conversation toward Patrick's upcoming retirement plans. Dinner itself unfolded with Patrick holding court at the head of the table, accepting compliments about his youthful appearance and sharing work anecdotes from his decades in insurance. The conversation flowed around topics that excluded me entirely: neighborhood gossip, Dylan's engineering projects, Rachel's teaching position, and extended family updates that reinforced traditional career achievements. As dessert was served, I felt my carefully rehearsed confidence beginning to waver. The birthday cake sat in front of Patrick while family members shared fond memories and future wishes. Nobody had asked about my life, my work, or my plans. The familiar pattern of invisibility threatened to derail my planned revelation. Taking a deep breath, I seized the moment between birthday toasts. "Dad, everyone," I began, my voice steadier than I felt inside. "I have something important to share about my company. TaskForge was recently valued at $15 million, and we have been featured in several major business publications this month." The silence that followed felt eternal. Angela froze with her fork halfway to her mouth. Dylan exchanged a quick glance with Rachel. Patrick simply stared, his expression cycling through confusion, disbelief, and something that looked disturbingly like anger. "What exactly does that mean, Chloe?" Patrick finally responded, his tone dismissive rather than curious. "These internet companies throw around all sorts of inflated numbers. Valuations are not the same as real money." I maintained my composure, explaining in simple terms how business valuations worked, our revenue streams, and growth trajectory. I mentioned our office with 42 employees and partnerships with Fortune 500 companies. The words felt hollow as they left my mouth, technical achievements reduced to desperate attempts at earning recognition. Dylan interrupted before I could finish. "So you got lucky with this online thing. That is great for you, but some of us have been building real careers with actual qualifications and long-term stability." The emphasis he placed on qualifications stung exactly as he intended. "It is not luck," I replied, fighting to keep my voice calm. "It is 7 years of 18-hour days, solving complex problems and building something that helps thousands of businesses operate more efficiently. We have created jobs and generated millions in economic value." Angela finally spoke, her voice uncertain. "That sounds impressive, dear, though I still think you would have been better off finishing your degree. Education provides security that business ventures cannot guarantee." The familiar refrain about education felt like a slap after everything I had accomplished. I pressed forward, retrieving the envelope containing Patrick's retirement gift. "I brought something for you, Dad. I wanted to ensure you and Mom have a comfortable retirement." Patrick opened the envelope, his expression darkening as he realized what he was looking at. Rather than gratitude, his face flushed with unmistakable anger. "What is this supposed to be? Some kind of charity? We did not raise you to wave money around like you are better than everyone else." "That is not my intention," I explained, feeling the conversation slipping beyond my control. "I just wanted to help, the same way I helped with Mom's surgery, Dylan's student loans, and the house repairs last year." 3 heads turned simultaneously as my secret financial assistance was suddenly exposed. The anonymous gifts that had sustained my family for years were revealed as coming from the daughter they considered their greatest disappointment.
"You," Patrick sputtered, his voice rising with each word. "All of it was you, making us feel like charity cases while playing the big shot with your computer money." Dylan looked mortified, while Rachel shifted uncomfortably in her chair.
Angela simply stared in shock at the revelation that her dropout daughter had been secretly supporting the family for years. "I was just trying to help," I replied, my voice smaller than intended. "I never wanted recognition or gratitude. I just wanted to support the people I love." "Support us?" Dylan interjected, his face flushed with embarrassment and anger. "You made us all look like fools. Some of us work honest jobs and pay our own way instead of getting rich from internet schemes that could disappear tomorrow." "Task Forge is not a scheme," I insisted, feeling my carefully maintained composure cracking. "It is a legitimate software company with real customers, real employees, and real revenue. We help businesses operate more efficiently and have created dozens of well-paying jobs." Patrick stood abruptly, his napkin falling to the floor. "You drop out of college against our advice, disappear into your little computer world, and now you come back throwing money around like some kind of savior? We never asked for your help, and we certainly do not need lectures about success from someone who took shortcuts." The word shortcuts hit like a physical blow. 7 years of relentless work, problem solving, and building something meaningful reduced to taking the easy way out? I stood slowly, gathering my purse and the rejected retirement documents. "You think dropping out of college was a shortcut?" I asked, my voice finally finding strength. "I worked 18-hour days in a studio apartment eating ramen noodles while you told everyone I had thrown my life away? I built something from nothing while you dismissed every achievement as luck or accident." Patrick's face turned deep red with rage. "You are still just an uneducated dropout who got lucky with computers. Anyone can get lucky. Real success comes from hard work, education, and following the right path, something you never understood." The room fell silence except for Angela's sharp intake of breath. Dylan looked down at his plates, unable or unwilling to defend me. Rachel appeared torn between loyalty to her future family and obvious discomfort with the cruelty being displayed. "No," Patrick continued, now fully unleashed. "I worked 30 years the right way. I got an education, built a respectable career, and raised my family with proper values. I will not be lectured in my own house by my dropout daughter who thinks money makes her better than everyone else." "Money does not make me better than anyone," I replied, fighting back tears. "But it does not make me worse either. What makes me different is that I took risks, worked harder than most people ever will, and built something meaningful instead of spending my life complaining about people who think differently." "Get out," Patrick spat, pointing toward the door. "Get out of my house, you arrogant little failure. Your computer money does not make you part of this family. We have standards and values you obviously never learned." The words hung in the air like poison. I looked around the table at each face, searching for any sign of support or even basic human decency. Angela sat frozen, saying nothing in my defense. Rachel refused to make eye contact. Dylan looked down at his plate, unable or unwilling to defend me. Rachel appeared torn between loyalty to her future family and obvious discomfort with the cruelty being displayed. "No," Patrick continued, now fully unleashed. "I worked 30 years the right way. I got an education, built a respectable career, and raised my family with proper values. I will not be lectured in my own house by my dropout daughter who thinks money makes her better than everyone else." "Money does not make me better than anyone," I replied, fighting back tears. "But it does not make me worse either. What makes me different is that I took risks, worked harder than most people ever will, and built something meaningful instead of spending my life complaining about people who think differently." "Get out," Patrick spat, pointing toward the door. "Get out of my house, you arrogant little failure. Your computer money does not make you part of this family. We have standards and values you obviously never learned." The words hung in the air like poison. I looked around the table at each face, searching for any sign of support or even basic human decency. Angela sat frozen, saying nothing in my defense. Rachel refused to make eye contact. Dylan looked down at his plate, unable or unwilling to defend me. Rachel appeared torn between loyalty to her future family and obvious discomfort with the cruelty being displayed. "Happy 60th birthday, Dad," I said quietly, walking toward the door with whatever dignity I could salvage. No one followed. No one called after me. No one suggested that perhaps Patrick had gone too far. I sat in my car for a few minutes, hands shaking too badly to start the engine. The house I had grown up in, where I had learned to ride a bike and celebrated my first programming success, was now closed to me forever. The family I had supported financially and emotionally for years had just called me an arrogant failure and ordered me out. The drive to my downtown apartment passed in a blur of streetlights and suppressed sobs. I pulled over twice when emotion overwhelmed my ability to focus on the road. The cruel irony struck me repeatedly. I owned a company worth $15 million, but had just been banished from a modest middle-class home because my success did not fit their narrow definition of respectability.
In the sterile quiet of my downtown apartment, I replayed the evening's events with a mixture of heartbreak and growing clarity. The family I had desperately tried to please for nearly a decade had finally shown their true feelings. No amount of success, generosity, or achievement would ever earn their respect because they fundamentally rejected everything I represented. I spent the next 3 days in complete isolation, turning off my phone and avoiding all human contact while processing the emotional devastation. TaskForge continued operating smoothly thanks to the capable leadership team I had built, but I found myself unable to focus on anything beyond the basic necessities of eating and sleeping. On the 4th day, I made a decision that would change everything. I contacted Sarah, a public relations specialist who had been encouraging me to raise TaskForge's profile through media appearances and thought leadership articles. For years, I had avoided publicity, partly from natural introversion, but mostly because I feared my family would see the coverage and feel embarrassed by my unconventional success. "Sarah," I said during our phone call, "I am ready to tell my story publicly. All of it. The dropout angle, the family rejection, the years of building something from nothing. I want people to know that success comes in many forms." Within 2 weeks, Sarah had arranged interviews with 3 major business publications and a local television morning show. The first article appeared in Pacific Business Monthly under the headline, "College Dropout Builds $15 Million Empire While Family Calls Her Failure." The piece detailed my journey from rejected teenager to successful entrepreneur, including candid discussions about family dynamics and the emotional cost of choosing an unconventional path. The response was immediate and overwhelming. TaskForge's website traffic increased by 300% in the first week. Potential customers reached out directly, saying they wanted to work with a company led by someone who understood struggle and perseverance. Most surprisingly, dozens of entrepreneurs shared similar stories of family rejection and eventual vindication. The second interview appeared in Forbes Online, focusing on the technical innovations that made TaskForge successful and the broader implications for American entrepreneurship. The journalist particularly emphasized how my lack of formal computer science education had actually been an advantage, allowing me to approach problems without preconceived limitations. Local television coverage followed, with the 15-minute segment on the morning show that included footage of TaskForge headquarters and interviews with several employees who praised the company culture and leadership opportunities. The anchor introduced the piece by saying, "Sometimes the biggest risks lead to the greatest rewards," as one local entrepreneur discovered after her family told her she would never amount to anything. The coverage created a ripple effect throughout Portland's business community. I received invitations to speak at entrepreneurship conferences, serve on nonprofit boards, and mentor other young business owners.
The recognition felt different from anything I had experienced before because it came from people who understood and valued what I had accomplished. Meanwhile, my former family maintained complete radio silence. No congratulations, no acknowledgement of the coverage, no attempt to reconcile or even discuss what had happened. The silence spoke louder than any words could have. 3 weeks after the Forbes article published, I received a text from Dylan. Dad saw the article. He is pretty upset about how you made the family look. Maybe you should have talked to us before going public with private family business. The message perfectly encapsulated everything wrong with their perspective. My achievements were reduced to making them look bad, while my years of financial support and emotional investment were dismissed as private family business not worth acknowledging. I did not respond to Dylan's text. Instead, I drafted a letter that I would never send, but needed to write for my own healing. It detailed every dollar I had secretly provided, every instance of family dismissal I had endured, and every hope for reconciliation I had harbored over the years. Writing it helped me realize that the family I had been grieving was largely fictional, built from wishful thinking rather than actual relationship history.
The viral moment came 6 weeks after my initial media appearances, when a popular business podcast featured my story in their series about unconventional entrepreneurs. The episode, titled, "When Your Family Calls You a Failure, But You Build a $15 million Company Anyway," was downloaded over 200,000 times in the first week and shared extensively across social media platforms. Comments poured in from listeners around the world who related to my experience of family rejection and eventual vindication. Many shared their own stories of choosing unconventional paths despite intense pressure to follow traditional routes. The episode sparked broader conversations about measuring success, the value of college education, and the courage required to pursue entrepreneurial dreams without family support. TaskForge's growth accelerated dramatically as the publicity brought us to the attention of major enterprise customers who had never heard of our company before. 3 Fortune 500 companies signed annual contracts worth over $2 million combined. Our employee count grew to 68 as we expanded into new markets and developed additional product features. More importantly, the recognition helped me build authentic relationships with other entrepreneurs who understood the journey I had taken. I joined 2 exclusive business networks for technology company founders and was invited to speak at Stanford Business School about alternative paths to entrepreneurship. The personal transformation was equally significant. I moved from my modest downtown apartment to a beautiful house in the hills overlooking Portland, complete with a home office where I could work surrounded by natural light and inspiring views. For the first time in my adult life, I felt proud of my achievements without qualification or apology. The inevitable contact came through Angela, who called 3 months after the podcast episode aired. Her voice was strained and uncertain as she attempted to bridge the chasm that Patrick's cruelty had created. "Chloe, we saw all the articles and heard the podcast. We had no idea your company was so successful. Your father feels terrible about what happened at his birthday dinner. He said some things he did not mean when he was surprised and upset." The conversation that followed was stilted and uncomfortable, with Angela trying to minimize the damage while avoiding any real accountability for years of dismissal and rejection. She suggested that perhaps we could all move past this misunderstanding and return to being a normal family again. I listened politely, but felt no obligation to make reconciliation easy for people who had treated me cruelly and only reached out after my success became impossible to ignore. "You called me when my achievements became public knowledge, not when you realized you had hurt me," I observed. "That tells me everything I need to know about your priorities." Patrick never called directly, but I heard through mutual acquaintances that he was struggling with the public nature of our family conflict.
Several of his insurance company colleagues had heard the podcast and asked uncomfortable questions about why he had rejected a daughter who had become so successful. Dylan eventually reached out with a more genuine apology, acknowledging that he had been embarrassed by my unconventional choices and had allowed that embarrassment to override basic human decency. We began having occasional coffee meetings where we slowly rebuilt a relationship based on adult friendship rather than childhood family dynamics. The most satisfying moment came when I was invited to speak at my old high school's career day. Standing in the auditorium where I had once felt like an outsider, I addressed 200 students about the many paths to success and the importance of trusting their own instincts even when others doubt their choices. Several students approached me afterward with questions about starting their own businesses. One young woman reminded me powerfully of my teenage self, confided that her parents wanted her to study accounting while she dreamed of launching a social media marketing company. Follow your passion, but plan carefully, I advised her. Success is possible without following traditional paths, but it requires more determination and resilience than most people imagine. The rewards, however, both financial and personal, can exceed anything you thought possible. As I drove away from the school that day, I reflected on the journey that had brought me from rejected college dropout to successful entrepreneur and public speaker. The family that had called me a failure was largely absent from my life now, but I had built something far more valuable: a chosen family of employees, mentors, friends, and fellow entrepreneurs who valued my contributions and supported my continued growth. Sometimes the greatest revenge is not confrontation or dramatic gestures, but simply living well despite those who doubted you. My success spoke louder than any argument ever could, and the recognition I had finally received came from people whose opinions actually mattered. TaskForge continues to grow, and my story continues to inspire others who face similar challenges. That, ultimately, is the best revenge of all.